Hey guys, welcome back to my last video covering the special edition changes throughout the original Star Wars trilogy. This is all in prep for The Last Jedi, which comes out 2 days from now, and let's finish things off with the changes in Return of the Jedi, which probably houses the most controversial of all the changes. The first change comes from the 2011 Blu-ray. Now, when I did my video on the changes in A New Hope, I mentioned that the Blu-ray changes were some of the most pointless changes ever made. So when I talk about the Blu-ray changes, I might not have a whole lot to say because there's not much to say on any of them. But anyway, the first change is the door outside of Jabba's palace. It's made to be much larger than it was in the original versions, and I don't see a purpose in this. Like the CGI rocks in A New Hope, by making this change, you created a continuity mistake, because now you have this giant-ass door, but when R2-D2 and C-3PO enter the palace, we can see that the door is back to its regular size, and even when Luke enters the palace, the door is reduced to the same size that it was originally. So what I said about the CGI rocks applies for this. It's a pointless change to begin with, but if you were going to change it, at least keep that change going for consistency. And because you didn't do that, you broke continuity. The next change first appeared in the 1997 special editions, and that's the addition of a musical dance number called Jedi Rocks. Yes, a Star Wars film has a dance number in it. Now, in the original version of Return of the Jedi, there's a scene that takes place after the droids are sent to work for Jabba, and right before Leia and Chewbacca enter the palace. There's a scene that just shows what goes on during a regular day in Jabba's palace. Basically, Jabba just sits on his throne, watching the Max Rebo band play some songs, watching Snice Noodles sing the songs, and watching his Twi'lek slave dancers dance to the songs. In the theatrical version, the original song was called Lapti Nek, and it sounded very alien-like, and the music sounds very much like something that you would hear within the Star Wars universe. Now, with the special edition, this sequence is made a little longer than it should be. The music is now just generic rock, and the lyrics for the song sounds like a baby talking. It sounds like total gibberish. And what's worse is that there's a CGI Snice Noodles now singing and dancing for the camera, not for Jabba, and then you have this other CGI creature singing into the camera, and again, singing to the audience. This entire sequence is dedicated to the audience, not to Jabba himself. With Lapti Nek, it felt very natural and fit within the context of the movie. With this change though, it feels like they stopped the movie just to have this scene, and there's no reason for it at all. This is one of the more painful scenes to watch whenever I have to watch Return of the Jedi on DVD. One little minor change from the original special editions that I feel like I should mention is Boba Fett being a playboy. Boba Fett has a slight interaction with two Twi'lek dancers, and I don't get it. It's not something I'm going completely nuts over, but I just never expected Boba Fett to be the flirty, playboyish type. I mean, if you're talking about Robot Chicken Boba Fett, sure, I can buy that 100%. But movie Boba Fett, he just seems like the guy who would shoot you in the head if you looked at him funny. Even though he's wearing that Mandalorian helmet, you could just look at him and go, I better not piss this guy off. So nothing I'm too upset about, but you could do without it. The next change is from the 2011 Blu-ray, and that's the CGI Doug walking around Jabba's palace. I don't have much to say about this change outside of why. Why is there a CGI Doug randomly walking around Jabba's palace in one shot? There's no purpose to it, and it further proves my point that the Blu-ray changes are some of the most pointless ever. The next change is from the 1997 special edition, and that's giving the Sarlacc pit more tentacles and a beak. Outside the fact that the CG looks like garbage, I don't have a problem with this change, because I always imagined that the Sarlacc pit would have a retractable beak that just pops in and out of the hole. Not much else to say about this one. I kinda dig it. Next up is another pointless Blu-ray change, which is an alternate shot, just for a second, of Han Solo knocking his staff into Boba Fett's jetpack, which sends him flying and crashing into Jabba's sail barge. It's a very distracting shot, especially when you consider that the past versions of this sequence felt very smooth. Han Solo hits Boba Fett's jetpack with his staff blindly, literally, and he just takes off. You can see everything. But with this shot right here, maybe I'm nitpicking, but it feels like the image is smushed in, making everything vertically stretched. Does that make much sense to you guys? I don't know. Just look at that image and tell me what you guys think, because this really bugs me for some reason. I don't know why. The next change is again from the 2011 Blu-ray, and that's the blinking Ewoks. I heard a lot of people giving shit towards this change when it was first scene, and it doesn't bother me that much. One of the big things that I said in Return of the Jedi is that the Ewoks just look dead and soulless because they don't blink. They just look like teddy bears. And one thing that I also said in my review for Return of the Jedi is that Chewbacca works so well because you can actually see Peter Mayhew's real eyes. That helps give Chewbacca some personality, but with the Ewoks, they just looked so deadpan. So I'm really glad that they put in the Ewoks blinking, and the CGI for the blinking effect does look pretty seamless. The only time you really see the blinking effect is with Wicket when we're first introduced to him, but all the other blinking effects for the Ewoks are hardly noticeable, so I don't know why people were up in arms about this. The next change is, once again from the 2011 Blu-ray, and that's the additional gadgets that come out of R2-D2 after he's shot by a stormtrooper during the Battle of Endor. Again, there's no point to this change existing. The CGI on the gadgets look awful, especially with that terrible blur effect. And I got nothing else. It's pointless. I don't like it. Moving on. The next change comes, again, from the 2011 Blu-ray. But I'm going to skip this one. You all know what this change is. This is a change that's so bad, I have to save it for last. So we're moving on to a change from the 2004 DVD, which takes place during the unmasking scene for Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker's eyebrows have been digitally erased, and this is to keep in continuity with the prequels, because, as we all saw in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker is burnt to a crisp, and when you're burnt to a crisp, you don't really have a lot of hair left, if any. So it makes sense to digitally erase the eyebrows. I don't have much of a problem with this. Again, it's there to keep in continuity with the prequels, just to connect the old with the new. It's totally fine. There are some other changes connecting the old and the new that are worth complaining about. The next change started in the 1997 Special Edition and had a few more additions to it in the 2004 DVD version. And that's the galaxy-wide celebration at the death of the Emperor and the destruction of the Death Star 2. I didn't say the fall of the Empire because, as we all know in this new canon, the Empire doesn't officially fall until the Battle of Jakku 1 year later. But anyway, in the original version of Return of the Jedi, there were just fireworks going around through the skies of Endor. But in the special edition, we get to see other planets throughout the galaxy celebrate the death of the Emperor. We see Cloud City on Bespin celebrating. We see Mos Eisley on Tatooine celebrating. We see the capital city of Theed on Naboo celebrating, which that itself is an addition to the 2004 DVD, which even includes a brief vocal cameo by Jar Jar Binks. And then the last one is the very first appearance of Coruscant, where we get to see the people of Coruscant celebrating the Emperor's death. And in the 2004 DVD version, in the backgrounds of the city, they inserted the Senate building and the Jedi Temple, again, to keep continuity with the prequels. And on top of all that, there's a new victory celebration song that plays throughout. I think it's just called Victory Celebration. It's a new score composed by John Williams that replaced Yub Nub, which is the original Victory Celebration song in the original theatrical version. Now, let me first get back to showing all the other planets. I actually don't mind this change because it's cool to see all these other planets celebrate the death of the Emperor, because this is a big galaxy-wide event. Emperor Palpatine had the entire galaxy on the brink of fear for 20 years. So the fact that he is dead is worthy of celebrating throughout the entire galaxy, or most of the galaxy. I imagine Vardos isn't celebrating the death of the Emperor. And as for the new victory song, it just feels more satisfying of a song, more than Yub Nub was. I don't know why, but there's just something about Yub Nub that never gave me that good, satisfying feeling to the end of this trilogy. The Victory Celebration song in the special editions did that much better. James Rolfe on Cinemassacre said that replacing Yub Nub with this new song is the biggest crime the special editions have ever done, and I'm like, really? This? I mean, more than the next change I'm going to talk about, which is inserting Hayden Christensen as Ghost Anakin. Okay, let's get into that change now. So in the original version of Return of the Jedi, Sebastian Shaw was the actor that played Anakin Skywalker, both during the unmasking scene and as a Force Ghost. Now, once again, to keep in continuity with the prequels, they replaced Sebastian Shaw with Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I get why this change is here, because when you watch the original versions of Return of the Jedi and see Sebastian Shaw, knowing in your mind what actually happened in the prequels, you have to ask the question of, Well, does the Force just automatically assume what you would look like if you weren't burnt to a crisp after you turned back to the light and became a Force ghost? It's just all these questions that I'm asking in my head. So this change doesn't bother me 100%. What does bug me is that if you really look closely, I don't remember who pointed this out. There was a YouTube video. I want to say it was Hello Greedo, but they pointed out that the clothes that Hayden Christensen is wearing is exactly the same as Sebastian Shaw, right down to the same folds, the same way everything's just put together. So that could easily mean that they photoshopped Hayden Christensen's head onto Sebastian Shaw's body, and that makes no sense at all. This change is a mixed bag. I get why they did it, but they shouldn't have done it. What they also shouldn't have done was the last change I'm going to talk about right now. I purposely skipped a change that was from the 2011 Blu-ray, and there's a reason for this, because the change I'm talking about is Darth Vader screaming, "No!" when he throws the Emperor into one of the many bottomless pits of the Death Star 2. Out of every special edition change, this is the one that I hate to my fucking core, because it's so unintentionally funny and it takes out all the dramatic elements of this scene. When I reviewed Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi in 2015, I made a point in talking about both endings in detail. For Revenge of the Sith, I criticized how after Vader is put in the costume, they kept going and had that ridiculous "No!" when they should have ended that scene with Darth Vader saying, "Yes, Master," and then cut to the Tantive 4 landing on Naboo. And in Return of the Jedi, I talked about how powerful the ending was when Vader turned to the light side, and one of the big things that I mentioned that I praised the scene for is the lack of dialogue, and how we could easily see through Darth Vader's helmet what he's thinking just as he turns on the Emperor. Silence is golden. By making this change, you immediately destroyed any emotional connections to this sequence. Because in Revenge of the Sith, everyone laughed at Darth Vader screaming "No." Even those that liked the movie, like me back then, had a problem with Darth Vader screaming "No." So why, in the love of fuck, did this get changed? Why did George Lucas screw over the ending to Return of the Jedi in probably the most careless way possible? When I say all the changes in the 2011 Blu-ray were pointless, this is the most pointless one, because not only is it pointless, it's damaging. And that's why I hate this change more than Han shot first, more than the CGI Jabba the Hutt, more than Hayden Christensen Ghost Anakin, more than Jedi Rocks. I hate this change because it destroys the most emotionally powerful sequence in the entire trilogy. So those are all the noteworthy changes in Return of the Jedi. Darth Vader screaming "No" is the last change that was ever made to the original trilogy, because a year later, George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney, and then they started making new Star Wars films. We've had 2 new Star Wars films ever since Disney acquired Lucasfilm: Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. What I love about the Blu-ray releases of these 2 movies is that these are the original theatrical versions. Disney is smart enough to not alter the films and change little details. And more specifically, when The Force Awakens came out on Blu-ray, it was the first time a Star Wars movie came to home video in its unaltered form. At least not since the original trilogy was released on VHS right before the special editions came out. So that's one thing you gotta give credit to Disney. Maybe one day we'll see the unaltered versions of the original Star Wars trilogy on Blu-ray officially released by Lucasfilm. People keep telling me that the original unaltered trilogy is never going to be released on Blu-ray by Disney. But you know what? Warner Brothers made a deal with Fox to release the Adam West Batman series on any kind of home video. So after that happened, anything's possible. Disney has the money to make a deal with Fox to release the unaltered trilogy. It's just a matter of when. So that pretty much does it. Despite all the special edition changes, the franchise is still going strong, and Star Wars is more popular than it has ever been, at least since the release of Revenge of the Sith. So I am beyond excited to see The Last Jedi. I'll have my review up as soon as I see it. And in terms of the changes made to the prequel trilogy, I don't think I'll be doing that video anytime soon. I'll do it someday. I'll probably do it when we get to the release of Episode 9, because I actually have no plans to do any Star Wars videos when the Han Solo spinoff comes out. So we'll see what happens. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the special edition changes to Return of the Jedi. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. May the Force be with you. always.